All right, let's talk about tackling one of medicine's most formidable challenges, ALS. Today, we're digging into a bold new blueprint. And the idea here isn't just about a new drug or a single discovery. No, it's about completely revolutionizing the very foundation of how we research the disease.
Okay, let's just dive right in by talking about scale, because that's really the heart of this entire idea. For years, ALS research has been working with data from a few hundred, maybe a couple thousand patients at a time. But the new vision is to leapfrog that entirely and build an integrated data set from 20,000 patients. This isn't just a step up, it's a monumental leap in what we can see and understand. And a leap in scale that big leads us to the central question for this whole explainer. Could an approach this ambitious finally unlock the secrets of ALS? Could it pave the way for real effective treatments? Well, let's find out. To really get the solution, we first have to appreciate the problem. So let's start by looking at why amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, has been such a stubbornly difficult puzzle to solve for so long. The first crucial thing to understand is that ALS isn't monolithic. It's incredibly varied, or what scientists call heterogeneous. I mean, the disease can start differently, it can progress at different speeds, and it can be driven by completely different biological factors from one person to the next. This massive variability is a huge reason why a one-size-fits-all treatment has been so elusive. And that reality creates this whole cascade of problems for researchers. With these smaller studies, there's just not enough statistical power to find real connections. Subtle but really important genetic clues, they're easily missed. It becomes almost impossible to separate a meaningful biological signal from just random noise. Researchers are basically trying to find a needle in a haystack, but the haystack is too small to even guarantee the needle is in there.
So, how do we get past these limitations? Well, the proposed solution isn't about just doing more of the same. It's a fundamentally new approach, one that's built on a massive scale. And it all comes back to this number, 20,000. When you move from hundreds of patients to 20,000, you create a data set with a level of detail and power that could reveal secrets that have been hidden for decades. With this kind of statistical firepower, even super rare genetic variants and subtle patterns suddenly become visible. And it's not just about the number of patients either. It's about the depth of the data. The plan is to collect multiple layers of biological information from every single person. Think of it like creating a hyper-detailed, multi-layered digital map for every patient, letting us understand the disease from the ground up. So, what exactly are these different layers of data that make up the map? And what can they really tell us about what's going on inside the body of someone with ALS? The scientific term for this whole approach is multiomics. It just means looking at the complete picture by studying multiple omes all at once. Everything from the DNA in our genome to the proteins that are doing all the work in our cells. And here's how all those omes fit together. It hopes to think of it like a city map. Genomics, that's the landscape, the fundamental DNA code, where we can spot risk factors like mutations in the C9orf72 gene. Then you have transcriptomics, which is like the real-time traffic, showing us which genes are being actively used, switched on or off. Proteomics looks at the workers, the actual proteins, like the infamous TDP43, that are carrying out all the instructions. But the real power, the magic, comes from integrating it all to see how a change in the DNA landscape affects the flow of traffic and the behavior of all the workers. Now, collecting petabytes of data from 20,000 people, that's one thing. But making sense of that astronomical amount of information, that is a completely different challenge. And that is where artificial intelligence becomes absolutely essential. So let's just quickly revisit those big challenges. The disease is incredibly varied, these small data sets hide the real signals, and the patterns are just way too complex for human analysis alone. This is the wall that researchers have been slamming into for years. And this is where AI becomes the master detective. It can sift through all that multiomics data to finally define precise molecular subtypes of ALS. It's literally designed to find those meaningful signals buried in all the noise, to predict how an individual's disease might progress, and ultimately to weave all those separate data layers into a single, coherent picture of the disease. But ultimately, what does all this mean for patients? Let's connect this high-tech science to its real-world impact and see how this blueprint could actually translate petabytes of data into real cures.
The first potential impact is just speed. A traditional drug development pipeline can take 10, even 15 years. By using AI to identify targets and simulate outcomes, this blueprint could potentially compress that timeline down to just 5 to 7 years. I mean, that's effectively cutting the time to get new treatments to patients in half.
The second thing is efficiency. Right now, the success rate for ALS clinical trials is incredibly low. We're talking less than 10%. But by using this data to stratify patients, that's a fancy word for grouping them into precise molecular subtypes, we can test the right drug on the right people. This could potentially triple the success rate of clinical trials. The downstream effects of this approach are just transformative. Imagine developing biomarkers that can detect the disease with over 95% accuracy long before major symptoms even appear. This leads to true precision medicine, where you're matching a specific drug to a patient's unique biological profile. And maybe most importantly, it means we can discover entirely new drug targets by pinpointing the exact molecular machinery that's gone wrong. The ultimate ambition of this whole project is really beautifully summarized in this quote. The goal is a two-step process. First, to transform ALS from this rapidly progressing fatal disease into a chronic, manageable condition, and from there, to make it truly curable. And that leaves us with one final provocative thought. This whole multiomics and AI blueprint is designed for ALS, sure, but the principles are universal. Think about Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, or multiple sclerosis. What other complex diseases could a blueprint just like this one help us finally solve?